My name is Christie, and I'm making a 3D puzzle platformer called Nectar. In the game, you play as a potted sunflower with its bumblebee companion, using nectar to grow plants, solve puzzles, and manipulate the world. In this episode, I'm going to talk about my experience working with a concept artist to establish some of the unexplored aspects of the game. But before we get started, you may have noticed that my devlogs are becoming less frequent. There are two reasons for this. The first reason, I've made the conscious decision to cut down on the frequency of my devlogs. They just take too long to make, and my development time on this game is already very limited. I get around 8 to 10 hours a week outside of my day job to work on Nectar, and these devlogs just cut into that time. I'd much rather spend most of that time just working on the game itself, but I don't plan on ditching the devlogs completely. It just means that each devlog I do release will cover a more substantial update. And even though I'm not posting as much as I used to, it doesn't mean I'm not working on the game still. On the contrary, it means that I'll have more time to work on the game. So that's the first reason I haven't been posting a lot. The second reason is just because I've just been pretty busy lately. Mainly because we are looking to buy a house, and house hunting has been taking up pretty much all of my free time. So those 8 to 10 hours that I mentioned earlier have really been more like 1 to 2 hours a week. But hopefully I find a house soon and then I can get back to a normal schedule. But even if I haven't been doing a lot on Nectar myself, there has still been progress on the game, specifically art related, which will be the focus of this video. So a decision I made pretty early on, and something that I haven't really showed off in these videos at all, is that there would be a heavy sci-fi aspect to the game. So far I've only shown nature-y, foresty environments, focusing mainly on plants, but a big part of the game's story will involve robots and a forgotten robot civilization. The player will uncover remnants of their society and learn about their history through message logs. They have a very special connection with the nectar substance in the world, and as you uncover more logs, you'll learn more about their relationship with nectar and the dying world. Now, one of the reasons I haven't shown them off yet is because I had no idea what they would look like. I drafted up a couple of designs myself in Blender, but I wasn't really that happy with them, so I sort of just hid them in the corner and haven't mentioned them at all. But I decided it was time to finally figure that out. A lot of my puzzle mechanics later on in the game that I have planned will involve some of the robot technology interacting with the nectar. And in order to make those assets, I need to figure out what the robots look like. So I needed some concept art. Now, I wanted to avoid using generative AI for this project, but I also knew that I wouldn't be able to do the concept art myself. I'm not that skilled of an artist to do that. So instead I searched online for a freelance concept artist. I browsed ArtStation for artists that I thought would be a good fit for the game, and that would also be able to fit into my budget. My funds are quite limited for this game, especially because I am in the process of buying a house, so I have to be very careful with how I spend my money. But I do want to make sure that whoever I did bring onto the project would get paid fairly, because they do good work, they deserve to get paid. So I looked around on ArtStation. There were a lot of great artists, but eventually I stumbled across an artist named Joshua Jay Christie. And I just loved his style. I thought it would fit the game perfectly. So I reached out to him. There was a little bit of back and forth. We talked about our expectations, and eventually we decided to work together. I commissioned 3 different briefings from him. One was for a tower, one for the robot design, and one for a robot city. I'll get a little bit more into these as we go on. But the format of this devlog would be a little different from my previous ones. He actually recorded a time-lapse video while he worked, and he gave those to me, so I'll just play those and I'll talk about what he's drawing and the thought process that went into the design. So we started with the tower, and I haven't mentioned this tower at all in the past, but it is a pretty central part of the game. It's something that the player will see on the horizon throughout the game, and it's the thing that the player is traveling towards. As you play through the game and get closer to the tower, you learn more and more about its importance in the world. And I wanted the tower to resemble that of a lighthouse, or similar to a lighthouse, but at the top, instead of a light, it's a very large crystal of nectar. Crystallized nectar is going to be a thing in the game, and the crystal on top of the tower contributes to the story itself, that the player will eventually learn about. But I also just thought the idea of a lighthouse with a giant crystal at the top was visually striking. So the purpose of the tower functionally for the player is that it'll be their beacon. It'll kind of act as a way to orient themselves. They'll always know generally which direction they're headed because of the tower in the distance. And Joshua really added his own cool style to the tower, which I think really makes it feel unique. And I've already started to 3D model the tower. It's not finished yet, but it's coming along pretty well. So after the tower, I thought it was pretty important to figure out what the actual robots look like. I was not happy at all with my old concepts, so Joshua and I workshopped a few versions of the robot, and I picked what I liked, what I didn't like. He iterated on them, and eventually we landed on something I was very happy with. I wanted the robot design to be endearing. The robots as a civilization, they're kind of meant to be friendly and very science-driven. And I thought a slender design conveyed these traits pretty well. I didn't want them to be threatening or anything. They're supposed to be welcoming and friendly. Now the story itself has a few specific robot characters, and I plan on using different head designs as a way to differentiate them and maybe slightly tweak the body for each one too. But the one shown here is supposed to be the base generic robot design that represents the civilization as a whole. And I haven't started 3D modeling the robot yet, but Joshua's character sheet should make that process fairly easy. And then the last thing I had Joshua work on was the robot city. The robot city won't make an appearance until near the end of the game, but I thought it was essential to figure it out now because a lot of the technology that the puzzlers are going to have are based on the look of the city. Now for the city, I had Joshua mock up some building designs, some little decoration designs, and then an overall mood shot of the city, a couple of them. And for these, I actually had very little notes for him. He did a fantastic job on the first go, so there wasn't a lot of back and forth for these. He kind of just nailed it on the first try. So the cities themselves will be very technology based, but they do embrace the effects of Nectar, so they kind of fuse them with their technology, and they use them to display gardens and stuff. So there'll be like street lights that emit Nectar that display public gardens in like courtyards and things. So yeah, that's the idea of the city. And that's all the concept art I have so far. I'll have to wait and see how I am financially after my little house hunting experience. Houses are expensive. But I fully intend on working with Joshua again in the future to develop other non-robot related art things. Maybe I'll have him design some other environments in the game. If you want to check his work out and see what he's up to, I've put links to his ArtStation, his Instagram, and his YouTube in the description. And if you're looking for an artist to work with, I highly recommend him. He's very easy to work with, and he's talented as well. If you want to continue following the development of Nectar, you can subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. If you want to join my community, I have a link to my Discord in the description. I post more frequent updates there too, if you think these devlogs are a little too far apart. And if you just want to support the game itself, the best way to do that is to go to the Steam page and wishlist the game. A link to that is also in the description. Thanks.